So one issue we have at the moment is when our player dies, it does look better now that we have a little bit of an animation for the player dying, but if we die, it's very quick and we fall down to the ground, and then the game kind of just continues on as it was. But one very powerful and very, very simple technique to add is to add a little bit of slow motion when the player dies. It gives the impact that the whole world has been changed, the game is kind of ruined for you, and there's not much you can do while you're in that position. So what we can do is very simply go into our player health manager script, go into our update loop here, and all we have to do, we'll do it just after this stuff here, and say if dead, so if the player is dead, then we can say time scale will be equal to, let's say 0.75. So the normal way the time works within Unity is if our time scale is set to be 1. So we're going to set it to be 3/4 speed here, and that way it'll give us a kind of slow motion effect. But what we want to make sure is if our player isn't dead, that we're resetting our time.timescale to be 1. Now this is a very simple way of doing this, where you wouldn't really want to have this continually happening in an update loop. What we would probably want to do more so would be put this time scale setting to be slow into when we first die, and then at the moment the way we have our scene being reset is a separate script that just resets the scene, and we would reset our timescale back to 1 for there. But for our purposes, for demonstration here, it's much more simple just to do this. So we'll go back into the game, let that compile for a second. Once that goes, there we go. So now, once our player dies, suddenly we get this a little bit of slow motion, and you can see the robots are moving a little bit slower, but that's not really noticeable enough. So let's try slowing it down even more than that. Let's go to half speed. And again, with everything that we do within this, feeling it out and feeling what suits your game best works is one of the most important aspects of it. So for example, that didn't feel quite right, so we go back in and tweak it and see how it feels when the game is running. So now we go ahead, we kill ourselves, and there we go. Now the robots are moving very, very slow. It's very obvious that something different has happened, and our player is dead within the world. And now if I reset the scene, time goes back to normal because we have it set up so that if the player is not dead, then we should be able to be alive. Oh, I'm just bouncing on these guys' heads here. There we go. I die, and he falls down to the ground dead. And slow motion, the slow motion, it just adds that extra little bit of element to the game and makes it feel a bit more like, again, your actions have an impact on the world itself. So as I said, you wouldn't really want to do that in your script here like this. What would be better is take our time.timescale setting and put that in when our player dies, and resetting our time.timescale to be 1. Well, at the moment we have within this very simple project, the only way we reset our scene to being normal after our player dies is this little scene reset script, which is just when we press our reset button down. But of course you might have an extra lives system, so when your player is brought back to life, you would want to immediately set time.timescale back to being 1. So here I would just add it in here, actually just before we load the scene, because we don't want to load the scene with time still being slow. So just before our scene is being reloaded, we're setting the time back to normal, and then we can get rid of this bit here, and you'll see effectively this looks no different to what we just saw a minute ago, but there's no need for our timescale to be set on every single update loop. And especially if you have other systems in the game that might slow down the time at various different points, then you don't want your timescale to be set on every update loop, or else it'll just be cancelling out that action every time you do it. So let's just play it again and we'll see it in action. Kill some of these guys. There we go, we got our time slowing down just the way we wanted. And then if I reset the game, we're back to being in normal speed. So manipulating time like that can actually have a huge effect on how the game feels, and it's important. It's something to consider as you go through your own game.